Okay, so I believe we are all set to go. Okay, so we are all set to go to load the 1000 URLs into our queue and see how that performs, okay? So I'm going to quit out of everything here. I'm going to close that, close that. Okay, so first of all, I will no longer need these 2 lines of code because we're not going to be permitting GET requests to this parse request handler. So for the time being, I'm just going to comment them out. I'm going to uncomment this line because we will be picking up the URL passed by the queue. And I'm going to delete this line here because we don't want to overwrite our URL, okay? So this looks good. And so now all we have to do is to load up the URLs. So before I do that, I'm going to open up a localhost port 8000, so our admin console. And I'm going to go into 3 places. One is going to be the full text search to see how our recipes are being indexed. The second is our data store viewer, which to see how our recipes are being saved to our data store. And very important, I'm going to go to the task queue to control the flow of our queue, okay? And I'm going to quit out of these other 3 tabs, and actually this one too. So here I have my recipes index, so I can see what's happening here. Recipes kind. This is all nice, and our queues, okay? So whenever we load up our queue, we should see that we're getting, let's say, 1000 tasks in the queue when it, finishes loading up the queue. And then gradually the tasks in the queue should decrease as the queue sends the item to the worker or to our request handler, so our parse request handler. And once tasks are finished, then, these tasks in the queue should slowly be decreasing. Now, one thing to note is that our maximum rate doesn't work 100% accurately in our development environment. So on our local computer, this does work very well in production. So if it's set to 1, it will work at 1 per second in production. Unless it's some kind of, very, very complicated and processing intensive task, or again, parsing is also a very, very time consuming task because you're actually going and sending requests to other websites and the websites may be slow, so on and so forth. So if you have 1 request per second and you have a bucket size of 1 and you permit only one of these executions in parallel, then more than likely you're going to run into and see that you're not actually getting the 1 per second. In fact, you're getting less, okay? So, this all depends on how you want to set your parameters and what you're actually doing with the queue and the worker. But anyway, for me, I'm going to leave this at 1 per second. I think it's enough, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and actually load the recipes. Okay, and I'm getting a 404 error here, and this is because we launched, if I quit out of my DevOps server, remember we launched the application using Python and launching the DevOps server manually in order to be able to resize our images, okay? So this is why it's not working, because we would have to pass in all of the YAML files here. Okay, so the easier thing to do is simply to launch it normally. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and cd into my project. So projects, App Engine, Yum Search 2, default, and now hit gcloud preview app run period. Okay. Okay, so now we have all of our modules running. So I'm going to hit refresh this and it's loading up our URLs. So let's see our task queue, 500, 900, 1000. Okay, 1000 in our queue. So now we'll start consuming the queue.